Hi guys, how's it going? Are you a prepper? Do you know what a prepper is? If you're a flat earther, you should also be a prepper because you are awake to the deception. You know what the government is capable of, so you should be prepared for just about anything. My wife and I started prepping around 2010 or 2011. There was a TV show called Doomsday Preppers that we were watching. And it was just about, they highlighted different people who were preparing for different doomsday scenarios. And it was really entertaining, and it was really kind of enlightening. There was people who were preparing for like the super volcano that's under Yellowstone National Park. There was people who were preparing for like an EMP attack, or even like a natural EMP um, that would take down the power grid. Um, People who were preparing for nuclear nuclear war, just the different preps, that were involved in there in the scenario that they were preparing for. So yeah, even the government came out a couple months ago with a detailed plan, what would be involved in the event of a year long um, grid down scenario. So a lot of people kind of posted links to that. There's a PDF you can download if you want to read it. Um, the government also says you should have. They advise you to have a 72 hour, be prepared, like an emergency kit, or drinking water and food for like 72 hours in case of emergency. So if the government is suggesting you be prepared for 72 hours, more than likely you should probably be prepared for 72 weeks. I mean, they're putting that out there. Yeah, be safe. You should have 72 hours, but what happens when 72 hours is up and the grid is down, and there's no food distribution? That's when the fan gets dirty. I heard someone say that the other day, like when the poop hits the fan. When the fan gets dirty, it's going to be insanity. Um, the grocery store in my area, when the forecast calls for more than 2 inches of snow, people rush the grocery store and buy up all the bread and water. It's kind of funny, but it was actually after watching an episode of that Doomsday Preppers that I kind of went out to our kitchen and looked in the pantry just to see, how long I could survive, or how long we could survive, um, if I wasn't able to get to the grocery store, or if the grocery stores were empty. And I probably had 3 days, worth of food in the kitchen or in the refrigerator. I mean, we'd be probably get to the point where we were eating stale crackers and oddball cans of stuff that were forgotten about and never got used, like beets or canned, I don't know, artificial crab meat, whatever. Just the weird stuff that you buy that sits in the back of your pantry and never gets used. We'd be down to that. We didn't really have any water. That show gave a lot of tips. Even if you're not a prepper, you do have water in storage in your hot water heater. Um, Depending on how big of a hot water heater, or how big your house is. If it's just an apartment size, it might only be 20 gallons, but there is water. If do have water in storage. Probably the most important thing, depending on the time of the year, if it's cold outside, you need to find shelter. You're going to have like a plan. What would you do if you were outdoors? You can die from exposure in the wintertime within just a few hours. The second thing you need is water. You can only last 3 days without water. If you drink bottled water, it's easy just to pick up another case of water and stash it in the closet, or something like that. If you can't, or you don't have space to store extra water, water filtration would be a good idea. They have these things called life straws. Um, they say you can drink from a mud puddle and it'll filter the water to make it drinkable. They're about $20 and they're good for, I think they filter like 1,000 gallons maybe or something like that, or 100. I don't know how much they filter, but water is a definite necessity. You need to figure out, just take it into consideration. What if you went to your faucet and nothing came out? What would you do? And then there's food. Dried beans and rice store for a long time, especially if you can seal them in some kind of container that has a good like a silicone seal or something, that airtight seal. Rice and beans will store. You should always check the dates on canned goods, because sometimes you can get some that are good for 4 or 5 years out. And speaking of the dates on the cans, they put those there so that you'll throw them away when they expire. I pulled I think it was a can of red beans. I was gonna make chili or burritos or something, and I found a can that had a 2015 expiration date on it, and I opened it up and used it, and that was just a few weeks ago in the end of 2018. Unless the can is swollen, the contents are probably still good. Once the contents start to rot or deteriorate or whatever, they give off gas, and it will cause the packaging to expand. If you see something that's ballooned up, or like a can that's swollen, it's probably not good. But don't be afraid to open a can of food just because that's past the expiration date. Anyway, that's just a couple of things you should have. I mean, like, oil lamps are cheap. You can get an oil lamp at Walmart for like $8, and then like a quart of lamp oil will last quite a while. So you can see, if you don't want to go to bed when the sun goes down, those are cheap and easy. You should, just think about what if, and be prepared. Go spend a day, when you get hungry, think about what you're going to eat, and think about how you're going to cook it if you couldn't pop it in the microwave or warm it up on the stove. They make these little rocket stoves. I just bought one on Etsy. It's like $100, but it's made out of square tube steel, and basically you put in, it just uses twigs and stuff, little bits of wood, and the way it's designed, it's got like an air shaft that feeds the fire, so it makes it really hot. And then there's the chimney of it goes up, and there's a grate that sits on top for cooking, and it makes a really hot fire, because with the airflow, the way it's designed, so that you can cook on it, heat up food. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there. If you're not prepared, you should be. If you're awake to what's going on in this world, you might think that Christians, God will provide for you, and that's God does provide. But a bald eagle just flew over. God does provide, but He also has given us brains to think about things. He's also given us the means. Some of us, if you have the means to prepare, then by all means you should. I have the means to prepare, so I do. Wheat berries, I had never heard of. I didn't even know there was such a thing. You can buy them at Walmart. I bought a hand mill for grinding up the berries. You can make your own flour, which is quite labor intensive, but when the grocery store's out of bread, another military airplane is flying over. That's number 3 in the last 20 minutes. That's weird. Especially for this area, we don't really have any military bases around here. Okay, yeah, be prepared. Martial law. They could restrict. Oh, that's something else. Transportation. Um, if the government declares martial law, I've heard that the interstate, most cities have a big loop around them. Here in Kansas City, it's the 435 loop. I've heard that their emergency preparedness plan was to contain what's inside the loop around the city, like shut down the interstate and you know contain the city within the interstate loop. So if you're at work and you work inside a city but you live like outside the loop, I do. How do you get home? If I'm approximately 20 miles from home. If something happened, if they declared martial law and they shut down the interstates, I've planned out a route to get back home without getting on the interstate. Or if there's an EMP and everything with a circuit board is fried, including your vehicle, how do you get home? I don't carry it with me in my vehicle anymore, but I used to have a longboard skateboard. I thought, short of keeping a bicycle in my car, a longboard skateboard would be easier than walking. What else? Oh, I had a car. For a long time, I was driving a car that was built before computers. I still have that car. It was built in 1969, and there are no computer parts, no circuit boards whatsoever in it. It's my emergency bug out vehicle if we had to go somewhere. And speaking of going somewhere, if you don't have gasoline, if the grid goes down, there's no gasoline. You can't pump gas. Do you have gas in storage? That might be something you want to look into as well if you have a vehicle that'll run. If there's not an EMP, or if there's just they cut off the supply of gasoline, you might want to have enough gas to get out of town. Gasoline, you can store gasoline probably for at least a year, just if you put it in a cool, dry, out of the sunlight, put it somewhere. They have additives, stable. It's called stable, STABIL. Additive for storage of gasoline that will extend the amount of time you can store gas. If you have a generator, that would be a plus. I hear another jet. I don't know. Anyway, no, that was a small one. Yeah. Anyway, if you're not a prepper, you should be a prepper. There was a commercial back in the 70s, probably, or maybe it was in the early 80s, about Dr. Pepper. I'm a pepper. You're a pepper. He's a pepper. She's a pepper. Wouldn't you like to be a pepper too? It applies to preppers. I'm a prepper. You should be a prepper too. So anyway, just want to get that out there. If you're not prepping, you should be. Definitely. So anyway, there are lots of videos on YouTube about prepping, so I don't really need to go into that. There are people who are more serious, or well, they have a lot of good information. I've watched lots of videos on it, and I believe that I am prepared for, long disaster of extended duration. So I just wanted to put this out there and say you should be prepared too. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.